I'm about to show you 3 of the most compelling Bigfoot clips ever captured on film.
Jesus.
Some of these you've probably seen, but I'm going to point out details that you almost certainly missed. Details that prove far more authenticity than skeptics want you to believe. Others you've probably never laid eyes on, footage that points to the undeniable reality of Sasquatch. But this isn't just another lazy top 3 countdown video. I hate those myself. My name's Robert, and I knew ever since having my own Sasquatch encounter in September 2024 that I'd have to dig much deeper on this stuff than most people are willing to discover the truth. So this is my deep dive investigation on why these 3 clips show real, living Sasquatches. The Grays Harbor thermal footage. Shot on October the 30th, 2013 on the Browns family property in Grays Harbor County, Washington, this clip was publicly released in November 2013. It was filmed by John and Ben Brown using a FLIR BTS series camera. FLIR is an acronym. It stands for Forward-Looking Infrared. It's a handheld thermal imager, and we'll talk a bit more about it later. The Browns were collaborating with Derek Randalls and the Olympic Project, which is a Bigfoot research organization, and they were trying to capture extensive audio of vocalizations and more from their property due to suspected Bigfoot activity that had been going on in the area. One night, the Browns asked to borrow a thermal camera from the Olympic Project and try their luck at capturing the creature that they suspected had been around, and the attempt happened at night. And turns out they did exactly what they set out to do. Toward the end of their first night, this is what they captured. So what do we know about this clip? Well, first of all, again, it was captured on October the 30th, just before midnight. The camera is an Armasti FLIR BTS XR Pro 640 by 480 thermal biocular unit, and you can see some details in the instruction manual for this unit here. They borrowed the camera, and neither man had any experience operating FLIR cameras prior to this. They also don't come across as particularly tech-savvy, which is interesting. They captured the footage on their first night with the camera. They also cast multiple footprints from around the site, measuring around 16.5 inches in length. The thermal footage shows more heat in the creature than in the surrounding environment, but that heat signature isn't consistent with the heat coming off the cow that we can see in the shot. It's also worth noting that bears are not known to be in this area. David Ellis from the Olympic Project did the first size comparison, and he estimates that the creature was 4 feet wide and at least 7 feet tall. Audio recordings from the property have also been captured, and they've recorded voices similar to Ron Moorhead and Al Berry's famous Sierra sounds. They've also captured sounds of trees twisting and howls. So, what are the most compelling aspects of this footage? First of all, we've got the chain of custody and collaborators. The fact that it was captured by known witnesses working with a long-standing research group, the Olympic Project, with explicit credits for equipment and post-production. We've also got the independent size estimate. Multiple researchers have estimated a measured height of at least 6 foot 6 inches while the creature was hunched over, and this is derived using known distances in the shot and the nearby cow as scaling mechanisms. Then there's the thermal signature of the subject versus the thermal signature of the livestock we see. The target's heat profile and posture clearly differ from the grazing cattle in the frame, giving a ready control sample for comparison. We've got details like shape, limb positioning and heat distribution to compare and contrast. Then there's the immediate place-based follow-up. A 16.5-inch footprint cast reported from the filming location is, at the very least, consistent with a large barefoot subject. And it's important to note as well that trackway evidence was a common aspect in the Browns reports. And finally, there's third-party site review. Paranormal investigator Phil Polling's on-location breakdown, and he has the YouTube channel Para Breakdown, by the way, documented the scene, the distances, and the sight lines involved. Keep in mind, he's known for debunking phenomena like this, so his careful treatment and admittance that this could be authentic is very notable. By the way, if you're sick and tired of the skin-deep, surface-level Sasquatch content out there and want something far more substantial, then hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Also, I've launched a Patreon for Cabin in the Woods recently, and it's the best place to connect with me and my Sasquatch evidence a whole lot more directly and intimately. The first tier of membership is totally free. I'll tell you more about it at the end of the video. But for now, let's get back into this list of footage. So let's look at some common criticisms of this footage. The first two criticisms have to do with the fact that the men involved apparently didn't know how to operate the FLIR unit, and as a result, it suddenly shut off. And this certainly could be interpreted as suspicious on the surface, but keep in mind that they had unusual experiences on their land prior to capturing the footage. Things like strange vocalizations and tree manipulation, which were, by the way, independently reported by the Olympic Project. They also borrowed the FLIR unit. It was a new piece of equipment to them, simply to try to film what was happening at night. So the FLIR unit manual says to power off the camera, you have to hold the power button for 8 seconds, and after 3 seconds, a warning appears on screen before shutdown. This makes it seem unlikely that they accidentally turned it off due to excitement or adrenaline, as has been hypothesized. The FLIR manual also says that the battery level is always on display. However, it also says if using non-rechargeable batteries, the display may not be accurate, and this is a crucial detail. Because we don't see the battery level in the exported video, we don't know how charged it was when they started filming. And due to lack of experience operating the FLIR, it's very likely that they drained the battery due to a false charge reading, which again, even the FLIR manual admits is certainly possible. They could also have been completely unaware of how long FLIR batteries generally last. The next criticism has to do with the fact that the creature doesn't seem to move, but this is consistent with a large percentage of reported cases. These beings seem to hide and blend in, and one of their main mechanisms for doing so is staying stock still. The figure does move a little bit during the shot, but the camera shake makes this harder to notice. And then there's the criticism about this being easy to fake. Sure, you could make that argument, but why would you do that? You know you're going to be called crazy by coming out with something like this and claiming it's real, and you're certainly not going to be making any money from it, as the men involved clearly did not. And then there's the additional work of mapping, diagramming, actively sharing the evidence with a skeptical video expert, spending considerable time recreating the shots and the recordings of noises and footprints. This is a lot of effort to go to for a simple hoax, knowing there's no fame or reward to be had from it. In fact, there's a good deal of punishment in all likelihood in the form of being accused of lying or insanity. Next, we come to the question of why the cow didn't run away, and why isn't the creature just as bright on the thermal imaging as the cow? Some argue that the cow doesn't run away because they simply filmed a human, and the cow is used to seeing humans. It's a fair point to consider because animals do grow familiar with their surroundings quickly, but this also includes the local and native fauna. There were reports of Sasquatch encounters in the Grays Harbor area decades before this footage was captured, and that's an important thing to keep in mind when evaluating authenticity. So it's safe to say that whatever this creature is, It was there long before the cows. Now, why is the cow brighter than the Sasquatch in the thermal footage? Well, there's a few reasons this could happen. First of all, the cow is moving and likely generating more body heat as a result. Also, denser and longer hair leads to a slightly dimmer thermal image. So here are my final thoughts on this footage. First of all, it's been put under community scrutiny and survived for over a decade. This clip has been reposted, debated, and re-examined for 11 plus years at the time of this video, including on many skeptical breakdown channels. And despite all that heavy traffic, no consensus of hoaxery or a hoax mechanism has been clearly demonstrated. Then there's the footprint consistency. The Browns' 16.5-inch long cast from this exact area aligns with the claim of a large biped pausing at that spot. And while a cast alone is not identity proof, it directly contradicts the small animals explanation. And finally, observer bias cuts both ways. The Browns' admission of inexperience with the FLIR unit explains the suboptimal focus and zoom, but it also undermines a sophisticated hoax scenario, which would usually require more planning and gear familiarity, not less. The Russian Almasty footage of 2015. In 2015, in the snowy forests of southern Russia, a group of amateur Yeti researchers responded to multiple reports of a large bipedal, ape-like creature around a mountain lodge in southwest Adygea. After heading out into the area, they heard heavy footsteps behind the trees in the snow, and then they filmed something extraordinary, an Almasty. Not a man in a suit, not a trick of the trees, but a living, breathing relic of human history caught on camera. This is real evidence, and I'm going to explain to you why it should be taken seriously. So here's what we know about this clip. It was publicly reported around January 15th or 16th of 2015. It was captured in the Adygea Republic of southwestern Russia, and the group that captured it is said to be from Adygeysk. The silhouette of the subject is tall and heavyset in outline with consistent dark tonality from head to toe, so there's no obvious clothing or color blocks here. One frustrating aspect is that there's also no verified original full-resolution file on record, at least not one that's been archived publicly. Extant versions are re-uploads and TV or news digitized copies on YouTube and blogs. The lighting is either that of an overcast day or light that's being filtered through a tree canopy. There's no thermal or night vision being used here. The camera used is unspecified, a regular consumer device by the looks of things, likely a phone or a handycam based on the compression and rolling shutter. No EXIF or RAW file was provided. So what are the most compelling aspects of this clip? Well, first of all, just look at how this thing moves. Clearly, this is movement outside human norms. And although it is quite blurry and compressed, obviously, there are certain frames which, when you zoom in and go through slowly, you can clearly see back musculature and even shoulder blades popping out as the creature's back muscles flex as it catches itself after this tremendous lateral leap. Another thing that zooming makes clear is that the arms of this creature are incredibly, frighteningly long. Look at that right arm in particular. That's no human. Also, the team pointed out tracks after the sighting. Unfortunately, no cast measurements were taken, nor were photos with scales captured or chain of custody published for the primary sources. According to the Moscow Times, a few months prior to this incident, Russian scientists claimed that they had found proof of a Yeti just outside Moscow. The snowy forests of Adygea in the Caucasus Mountains are a hotspot and have been for centuries of purported Almasty activity. Although this clip was technically captured in spring, the temperature still would have been quite low, and the terrain rugged and very remote, making any attempt at hoaxery in this location difficult, dangerous, and, as is the case with many purported hoaxes, without any clear payoff for the perpetrators. The subject also appears to have a natural gait. It looks like it's walking with a heavy, forward-leaning stride that believers argue shows muscle movement rather than stiff costume fabric. When attempting to scale the subject against the trees, even in these highly compressed versions, the figure seems taller and broader than any average human would compared to the surrounding trunks. As far as the footprint claims, witnesses on site reported seeing large tracks in the snow immediately after filming, consistent with the size of the figure. The amateur team were local Yeti enthusiasts, not filmmakers seeking publicity or money, and this adds credibility to their account. This capture is also consistent with regional lore. The Caucasus has one of the richest traditions of Almasty sightings, and the clip aligns with descriptions passed down for many generations. Then there's the short, unpolished nature of the capture. The brief, shaky clip feels authentic and seems to reflect the surprise of a real encounter rather than some staged performance. But beyond any of the analyses of this clip and its sources, or even the looks of the creature, the thing that stands out to me most is this incredible lateral jumping movement that we see from the subject. This movement seems to be incredibly ape-like and would take a level of strength and explosive muscle power that no human has, if you ask me, short of perhaps an Olympic-level athlete. When I see this jump, my gut says I'm not looking at a human being. Now let's look at some common criticisms of this clip. First of all, the shaky, low-resolution footage and lack of original raw files. These are two of the most reasonable of all the criticisms. Access to the raw data would prove that it hadn't been tampered with if we had it, although nobody has made that accusation after 10 years. But more critically would provide a higher concentration of pixels, giving us more detail and better resolution. The truth is, surprisingly little is known about the group and person who originally filmed the video and where the original video files went. However, this doesn't take away from the fact that they captured something that could be the most compelling evidence of Yeti, Sasquatch, or Almasty since Patty of the famous Patterson-Gimlin film. And again, this incredible lateral jump is the thing that most strongly points to that authenticity. So I'd like to put a call out to anyone watching this, especially viewers in Russia, who may or may not be from this region, or may not have even shot this footage. Please get in touch with me because I'd love to talk to you about what you captured here. The next criticism is the unclear motivations and the fact that it apparently could easily have been faked. But their motivations were simple. They were responding to Yeti reports from this area and trying to capture one on camera. And that's exactly what they did. I think their motivation was pretty obvious, noble, and straightforward. And my concluding thoughts on this footage? Well, it's compelling. Aside from the incredible movement, speed, and strength of the creature, consider the following. This clip was captured in a remote forest in the Caucasus Mountains. This is an area known to have Almasty sightings. The natural forward-leaning gait and limb motion appear fluid and consistent with a known large primate, rather than a human. The dark uniform shape with no visible clothing breaks suggests full body hair rather than clothing, and relative to surrounding trees, the figure seems larger and broader than an average human, by a considerable margin. And there has been no commercial gain from this footage whatsoever. It almost feels like those that took the footage don't want the attention. And this isn't exactly the typical behavior of con men seeking fame or money. And one more thing. While I was analyzing this footage, I noticed there is what looks like a large brown bear between the people and the Almasty. That's got to be the most Russian thing ever. The Paul Freeman footage. The Paul Freeman footage was filmed on August the 20th, 1992.
Oh, there he goes. Jesus.
It was captured near Deduct Spring in the Blue Mountains, the Umatilla National Forest close to Walla Walla, in Oregon to be exact. And it's one of the most widely circulated pieces of Bigfoot evidence around. It was captured by Paul Freeman, predictably enough, a former U.S. Forest Service patrolman. And the video shows a large bipedal figure moving through timber near a spring while Freeman narrates his pursuit of tracks. What do we know about this footage? Again, the date and location, August the 20th, 1992, which, by the way, is often misreported as 1994, including right in the timestamp on this version of the footage that's widely circulated online. And this information, by the way, comes from Michael Freeman, Paul's son, in a published interview that he gave. The witness and camera operator was, of course, Paul Freeman, and again, he had a background in patrolling remote areas for the U.S. Forest Service. The equipment he used was some sort of consumer-grade videotape and a regular camcorder, although the exact model is unknown. The highlight of the footage, as we've already touched on, is a large upright figure moving away through the timber, with Freeman stating afterwards that he had been tracking footprints at the site. And this is actually shown in a lesser-known, longer version of the clip, where Freeman is following footprints on the ground with his camera for quite some time, narrating occasionally as he does, before the creature becomes visible. There's also some physical evidence that goes with the footage. Freeman was known for frequently casting footprints from the area, some of which show dermal ridges and skin whorls, as well as other morphologically significant features very difficult to hoax, like mid-tarsal pressure ridges. These casts were examined and taken seriously by anthropologists like Dr. Grover Krantz and Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Both these scientists, by the way, examined tracks that Freeman discovered in person and determined that the morphological details in these tracks were too detailed and too anatomically accurate to be fakes.
And so I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, how could it possibly do this? There's too much anatomical detail, which, as I would describe, point out the things that were impressing me. It was like, he didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
I ain't never been scared like I was scared yesterday. I never have been afraid of man or beast or anything, but I sat up there yesterday and cowered down like a little kid.
So what are the most compelling aspects of the Freeman footage? First of all, we have this verified date of 1992, which was confirmed by Freeman's own son, and this removes ambiguity around when it was filmed. Then there's witness credibility. Freeman's background as a Forest Service patrolman and trained observer lent him a level of authority and familiarity with the wilderness that most witnesses don't have. There's supporting physical evidence. The connection between Freeman's footage and Freeman's casts, some of which again show dermal ridge details, skin whorls, mid-tarsal pressure ridges, and other difficult-to-fake details, has drawn serious scientific attention. The fact that major figures like the late Dr. Krantz and Dr. Meldrum took Freeman's evidence so seriously and backed up that seriousness with solid conclusions based on physical evidence adds serious weight to the significance of this footage.
Well, I'm looking at these tracks. What he's calling imperfections are just the signs of animation, the toe slips, or the drag outs, the big toe dragging out, or the pressure ridge of a mid-tarsal break, all these types of things, the tension cracks, the splay, the smear of a toe spreading across or slipping down across the instep, that push off. And I just soaked it in.
Then we have the creature's height. According to Freeman, the evergreen tree that the creature brushes past at the highlight of the clip was 16 feet tall. He claimed to measure it after the fact, and here's the thing, this measurement was later verified by a retired game warden named Bill Laverty. This measurement adds massive credibility to Freeman's estimates of the creature's height, because he stated that he guessed it was close to 8 feet tall, and the subject certainly does appear to be at least half the height of this conifer tree that it brushes past. So what are some common criticisms of the Freeman footage? Well, we've got his reputation. Freeman has been criticized by skeptics who argue that he may have been hoaxing evidence, citing doubts in his past cases. The fact that he cast many footprints seems suspicious. Then there's the footage quality. Much like many Bigfoot videos, the Freeman footage is shaky, distant, and lacks a whole lot of fine detail, making it hard to confirm what's being seen, at least in the opinion of skeptics. As far as Freeman's reputation, while skeptics highlight his history, his direct involvement in law enforcement and wilderness patrol provides credibility rather than the opposite, and his persistence in collecting evidence points to genuine interest rather than fabrication. He did this for years and years and pushed himself extremely hard to be a thorough documentarian. As for the footage quality, though it's certainly not crystal clear, the size, gait, and fluidity of movement of the figure are consistent with many descriptions of Sasquatch, and also are difficult to reproduce convincingly with costuming on a human, especially given the thick, tangled, uneven terrain. So my final thoughts on the Paul Freeman footage? It stands out, not only for the moving figure it captures, but also for its integration with a broader body of physical evidence, especially the footprint casts that continue to intrigue scientists, and again, have been declared by two different scientists, one of whom is also an expert in primate locomotion, as impossible to fake. While criticism persists, as it no doubt always will, the consistent expert interest, Freeman's professional background, and the depth of associated physical data that goes along with this footage keep this case among the most compelling Bigfoot video recordings ever captured. So there you have it. 3 clips which, when you examine the details surrounding them, as well as the details visible in the footage itself, make a very strong, and some would say unbreakable case for authenticity. But of course, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you still skeptical and unconvinced? Or do you think I've made a reasonable case here? Either way, I'd love to hear your opinion. If you've ever wanted to be part of this search for the truth about Bigfoot, not just watching from the sidelines, but actually standing with me as I dig deeper, then I've just launched something just for you. My new Patreon is live, and it's built like a research team. You can sign up for free and still get access to behind-the-scenes photos and occasional polls. Those are open to everyone. But if you want to go further, sign up as a research supporter. For $5 a month, you'll get early access to ad-free versions of all my videos, exclusive behind-the-scenes photos, and exclusive polls. At the research participant level, $10 a month will get you all of that, plus behind-the-scenes videos, 10% off all exclusive Cabin in the Woods merch, full-length extended interviews, and voting power for upcoming video projects. To celebrate the launch, the first 100 members to sign up will get 20% off their first purchase of exclusive Cabin in the Woods merch. That's on top of the discounted prices already going on in the store right now. Those discounts are worth more than even the highest tier of paid membership. This really is the best way to support this work, get closer to true Bigfoot investigation, and help me keep pushing for answers. All links are in the description. I hope to see you on the inside. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Cabin in the Woods. Those things help me out a whole lot to keep putting out this content for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.